Okay, shall we start? Yep. Okay, I think it's time to start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, important webinar presenting the 11th edition of the EMN survey on microfinance in Europe. The report is being released today, so you can access it through the EMN website, and I think Francesca is putting a link to that in the chat box if you want to see it. This exercise of surveying microfinance in Europe is a real flagship exercise of the EMN research team conducted in cooperation with MFC. It is seen by us as a step towards making the European Microfinance Network as the center of data on microfinance across Europe. So it is important from that perspective also to support and sustain and substantiate our advocacy efforts in favor of the MFI activity and microfinance institutions. And this is why we want to convey our big thanks to the MFIs and the practitioners who contributed the data to the survey. We are fully aware that this is a heavy exercise, somewhat costly, time-consuming, seen sometimes as a burden, but please be sure that we make very good use of these data to help you in return. We also convey our thanks to the national networks who have supported this effort of collecting data from practitioners. This year's edition, as you will see and hear during the presentation, is somewhat different from previous years for two main reasons. One is that we have now started to make this exercise annual instead of every other year as it was in the past. And also because we are picking each time around, we are going to pick special areas to focus on, but I'll let the presentation to develop these aspects. Let me just quickly propose to you the agenda flow, the way we suggest to present and discuss the survey report. And the idea is that we start with a presentation by the two main authors, that is Justina Pitkowska from MFC and Nicola Benaglio from EMN. They will each take 15 minutes to present their part of the report, after which we will have a discussion with the best panelists we could find to represent the institutions. We will start with Jaime Duran Navarro, the project officer of DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, who is already with us. We will continue with Christina Dimitrescu, Senior Investment Manager at the European Investment Fund Inclusive Finance Team in Luxembourg, EIF. Then Bruno Robino, Deputy Head of Financial Intermediary Advisory Division at the EIB, European Investment Bank in Luxembourg. And last but not least, Christina Maszlowskaite. I rehearsed the pronunciation of your name. Who is the technical advisor at the Council of Europe Bank in Paris. They will each take some 10 minutes to discuss areas of the report which is of particular relevance to them. I think this is all I wanted to say in terms of introduction. Let me just add in terms of logistics that if you have questions, please keep them for the end of the meeting. We hope to have some time for question and answers. You can then intervene from your part. If you prefer, you can also write down your questions in the chat box, and I'm sure that Francesca Preve will take care of reproducing these questions at the end of the meeting. So, without further ado, I think we turn to the presentation, and I give the floor to Justina Pitkowska. Justina?
Thank you. Thank you, Dominique. Good morning, everybody. Let me start the presentation with a brief overview of the methodology of the survey. As in the previous editions of the survey, we collected data mainly through the survey distributed among the MFIs. We then supplemented the data set with additional data from the annual reports of the MFIs, reports of the national associations, and statistics from the national banks and supervisory commissions. We collected the data on microlending activities, defining business microloans as those up to 50,000 euro at disbursement, and personal loans as those up to 25,000 euro at disbursement. The survey covered 29 countries, which we grouped into 4 subregions: the Balkans, Eastern Europe, Northwestern Europe, and Southern Europe. In the following slides and in the report, we present data as of the end of 2022. As to the coverage, the survey included 169 institutions. Non-bank financial institutions were the most numerous, constituting 41% of institutions covered by the survey. NGOs were the second largest group, with 29% of the institutions in the survey sample. The biggest number of MFIs was located in Eastern Europe, 41%, and in the Balkans, 30%. Banks were mainly located in Northwestern Europe, credit unions in Eastern Europe, non-bank financial institutions in the Balkans, and NGOs in Eastern Europe. Now about scale and outreach of microlending activities. The gross microloan portfolio reached 5.3 billion euro by the end of 2022, and 51% of it was managed by the banks, in particular one large microfinance bank, which managed 36% of the total microloan portfolio. The largest share of the gross loan portfolio was located in Southern Europe, again because of the largest bank which operated there. The number of active borrowers reached 1.3 million by the end of 2022. NGOs served the largest number of borrowers, 39%, and banks served 35%. And again, because their share in the total number of micro borrowers is because of the largest bank, which served 24% of micro borrowers. In terms of the distribution of the borrowers in the subregions, 50% of them was located in the Balkans, and 27% in Southern Europe. In business and personal loans distribution, we see that 52% of the total microloan portfolio is in business microloans, with the other 48% in personal loans. But there are big differences between the institutional types. While NGOs and BFIs provided predominantly business loans, credit unions and banks tended to provide more of the personal loans. But a note should be made that among the banks, there was the largest bank, which provided a lot of personal loans. So if we put this largest microfinance bank aside, the rest of the banks provided 77% of the loan in business loans. We calculated growth trends on a subsample of 64 MFIs. These are the ones which provided multi-annual data. And we saw that the gross loan portfolio rate of growth in 2022 was 20%, exactly the same growth rate as a year earlier in 2022, but higher than in 2020, the pandemic year, when the growth rate was 10%. The number of active borrowers grew at a much slower pace. We observed only 1% growth in 2022. It was lower than a year earlier in 2021 when the growth rate was 3%. However, we also observed that in 2020, during the pandemic, the number of borrowers decreased by 2%. Altogether, 76% of MFIs provide non-financial services, and they provide three types of services. Almost half of MFIs support the development of entrepreneurship skills among individuals. That is business skills and know-how how to establish and run an enterprise. Also, almost half of the MFIs support business development skills of micro-entrepreneurs with already operational businesses. And 1/3 of the MFIs support their clients in improving financial capability to prevent over-indebtedness. And there are differences between institutional types in terms of the engagement in different development services. So the banks tend to more often support entrepreneurship skills, while credit unions tend to support financial management, financial capability, household finance management among the individuals. Now let's move to the financial performance and funding needs of the MFIs. The portfolio quality par 30 ratio was on average 11%, and personal loans performed slightly worse than business loans, although the differences were not very high. Among the institutional types, NBFIs had the best portfolio quality, and in the sub-regions, MFIs in the Balkans had the healthiest portfolio. And when we look at the operational self-sufficiency, the ratio on average was 108%, showing that on average the MFIs were self-sustainable operationally, but not all of them. 1/5 of the MFIs were not operationally self-sustainable, and among them, most often NGOs had low OSS ratios. When we compare the sub-regions, Balkan MFIs had on average the highest operational self-sufficiency ratios. In case of funding sources, the most popular funding source is for borrowed funds are commercial banks. So we have 37% of MFIs using this source. So this graph shows the number of MFIs, not the value of borrowings. It's just about using this source of borrowed funds. Then we have the second source, EU resources, used by 25% of the MFIs. And EU resources means the use of EU funds such as ESF, ERDF, and other funds managed by EIF, EBRD, or CEB. There are also some other types of sources like development institutions, 18%, and international public organizations, 16%, and also MIVs, microfinance investment vehicles, with 12% of MFIs using this source. In case of equity, the biggest number of MFIs uses corporate shareholders and also individual shareholders. and the other sources of equity are used by a much smaller number of the MFIs. The second graph shows the use of portfolio guarantees, and overall we see that half of the surveyed MFIs use any type of portfolio guarantee. Most often they use EU guarantees, but to some extent also national guarantees are used. And in case of banks, they far more often than other institutional types use either EU or national guarantee funds. The other institutional types use guarantee funds to a much smaller extent. As to the funding needs, almost all MFIs need additional funding. In case of equity, the most common ticket size for equity the MFIs are looking for is 1 to 5 million. And NGOs more often than other institutional types need equity injections. In the sub-regions, MFIs in Northwestern Europe and in the Balkans are more often looking for equity compared to the other sub-regions. In case of Northwestern Europe, they need larger amounts than the ones in the Balkans or in the other regions. In case of needs for borrowed funds, 85% of MFIs are looking for additional debt. Most often they are looking for more than 10 million euro per MFI. NGOs and NBFIs need borrowed funding more often than banks or credit unions. NBFIs most often need more than 10 million euro, while NGOs are looking for up to 5 million, so smaller ticket sizes. And that's all for me. Now I give the floor to Nicola.
Thanks a lot, Justina. I'm sharing my screen. Thanks a lot, and yeah, good morning, everybody. So as said, I'll be presenting the 3 priority topics that are included in this year's edition of the survey. The first priority topic is support to the underserved, where we try to highlight the specific demographics which are served by MFIs, and also the design of dedicated products to serve some of these target groups. The second priority topic is green microfinance, while the third one is related to the digital transformation of MFIs. So I'll start from the first one, and let's start from the demographics of MFI's active borrowers. So in these graphs, you will see some target groups which are served by MFIs, and two different dimensions. The column that you see represents the share of MFIs serving a specific target group. For instance, for women, we see that MFIs serve 100%. 100% of the MFIs serve women. And then you have a second dimension, which is this golden line that represents the actual weight of that specific demographic within the active borrowers of the MFIs serving that specific demographic. So for women, that would mean that women represent 42% of the active borrowers of MFIs. So based on that, what we see here is that the target groups which are more frequently served by MFIs are women, youth, and senior. But when it comes to the weight of the specific target group in the portfolio of MFIs, women and rural are the prevalent active borrowers. If we focus for 1 second on migrants, we see that 1 out of 3 MFIs do serve migrants. And for those MFIs, migrants represent 1 out of 4 of their clients. We also wanted to see if MFIs, aside of their, on top of their standard products, developed also dedicated approaches to serve some of these target groups. For dedicated approaches, we mean dedicated financial services, non-financial services, or outreach campaigns. And what we see is that the target groups for which MFIs developed dedicated services are primarily rural inhabitants, women, and youth. 2/3 of the MFIs developed a dedicated non-financial service to serve one or more of these target groups. Half of the MFIs organized outreach campaigns, and 1/3 of them developed dedicated non-financial services to serve these demographics. We also see that 84% of the MFIs are interested in enhancing their offer of dedicated services. And in particular, they are keen on further supporting youth, women, and rural communities with dedicated and tailored approaches. And in order to do so, they will need grants, guarantees, technical assistance, and borrowing for on lending. I'll move now to the second priority topic, which is the topic of green microfinance. So here, I'd like to start maybe from the overall environmental performance of MFI. And what we see in the report is that MFIs are working actively on their environmental performance. 17% of them is implementing practices in order to reduce their negative impact on the environment, whilst 60% of them is also working on designing and establishing environmental strategies, and also monitoring and reporting back to their board and investors, and in their annual report, their environmental performance. If we focus specifically on one of the dimensions of the environmental performance of MFIs, which is the offering of green microloans, we see that 55% of the MFIs offer green microloans, either through dedicated or standard products. We also see a positive dynamic in this respect with 24 additional MFIs that expressed intentions to enter into the green microloan market in the coming 2 years. Still on the green micro lending, we also wanted to see the different purposes of the green loans. And what stands out from the report is that these loans are primarily offered for renewable energy efficiency investments. 77 and 75% of the loans are offered for this purpose. And then there are two other purposes which are widespread. Mobility loans, so loans in order to purchase or do leasing for electric vehicles. And then there are loans for sustainable agriculture, which are also offered by 50% of the organizations that are actively engaged in green microlending. One thing which is worth noting is the different trends which are happening in the sub-regions that were presented by Justina. For instance, if we take the Balkans and the Northwestern Europe, which are the two sub-regions that are more active in the disbursement of microloans, green microloans, we see that in the Balkans, MFIs in the Balkans are more engaged in the provision of loans for renewable energy efficiency, and sustainable agriculture, whilst MFIs active in Northwestern Europe are engaged primarily in mobility loans. When it comes to green non-financial services, we see that 1 out of 3 organizations that offer green loans is also engaged in the design of initiatives which support their clients in order to adopt new solutions. These services are mostly related to awareness raising and more clients, 23% of them, or linking clients with providers of green solutions, 21%. And actually, these two services are supposed to tackle the main challenge which MFIs are facing, that is the low demand for this type of products. Last slide on green, and is related to the support needed by MFIs in order to further expand their offer. As you can see from the graph, there are a number of support needed by MFIs, highlighting the need for a comprehensive and complementary package of support in order to help MFIs in achieving a bigger impact in this respect. MFIs need a blend of technical assistance to develop new products and services, or to develop environmental strategies, but also they need funding, risk coverage, and grants in order to support the non-financial services and outreach campaign that are needed to get in touch with the clients. I'll move now to the last priority topic, which is digital transformation. And here, what we see is that the importance of digital transformation is now widely acknowledged within the sector. 95% of the MFIs consider digital transformation as important or very important, and they integrate this component into their strategic plans. So for MFIs, the question is not if they have to digitally transform, but mostly what has to be transformed and to what extent, because MFIs are not interested in fully automating their operations. We asked MFIs to specify which are the two key aims of their digital transformation. And as you can see from the graph, the two main aims are increased client satisfaction and efficiency gains. And that means that for European MFIs, their digital transformation is mostly about a gradual optimization of the existing services and processes, rather than entering into new markets or developing new products. We also tried to understand which were the main priorities in terms of solution for MFIs, and what we saw is that for MFIs, high priority solutions are those that are related to interaction with clients. For instance, customer apps, or the possibility to digitally onboard clients. There's also a different possibility for MFIs to invest in their digital transformation. We can see that there are very different clusters here. 40% of the MFIs are planning on having a similar level of investment in the coming 2 years, because either they are not interested or they are not in the position to improve their investments there. Whilst on the other side of the spectrum, there is a segment of 10%, 11% of the MFIs that has the financial capacity to do big investments in technology and be at the forefront of technological innovation. In terms of support needed by MFIs, in order to digitally transform and speed up their transformation, they will need funding for their investments, but also for developments. One of the main challenges for MFIs is finding and compensating developers and IT experts, which are high on demand in the market. Also, MFIs need exchange of good practices with other peers. This is support needed by 48% of the organizations, and is probably like a natural role also for the networks to play in that respect. And then MFIs also need technical assistance to develop digital strategy, and also to train and build the skills of their staff. And we see among the challenges of MFIs that the digital skills of their staff are often a problem for the sector. So that was my last slide on the digital transformation. Before I'll hand it over to Dominic, just a couple of last minute to say two things. First of all, that there is much more in the report, so I really invite you to download it and read it. This is just a summary of some of the key results. And then I wanted to give you some heads up on the next edition of the survey, so that you know what to expect. So we will continue with the annual survey. So this is the rhythm that we want to take as from now. We will start the new data collection in September 2024, and we will gather data related to 2023. And in terms of main contents, our idea is to keep a set of core indicators that are related to the part that Justina presented, so related to the scale, outreach, and financial performance of the sector. Whilst when it comes to the priority topics, which I just presented, we're going to revise them in order to make sure that they are still aligned with our advocacy focus areas. And that's it.
Well, thank you very much, Nicola and Justina. This is actually already a lot of information that we will need some time to swallow and digest, to study and examine what is important for our respective jobs. And you're telling us now there is even much more in the full report. So lots of work now for us. But let's start immediately with the reactions of our panelists. And I will turn first, as agreed, to Jaime Duran Navarro of the European Commission, with a first question on really what is for you and for the Commission, what is important in this report, and if you want to elaborate on a couple of main issues as seen from your perspective and from the perspective of the markets of microfinance operators. Floor is yours, Jaime.
Thank you, Dominic. Yes. Okay, it's really a pleasure to be here, and I really joined you, Dominic, to thank Justine and Nicola and all the team behind, because they did a very good job. I also would like to join the thanks to the national networks, because that's what makes a difference for us, for the employment. We have two main sources of analysis. One is the reporting that we receive from the people that through EIF we are serving under InvestU or under EASY. But through EMN and MFC annual survey, we can see the rest of the sector. So it can help us to see who are we supporting and who are and the needs of the people that we are not supporting. So we have a global picture of the sector. So it's a very important tool for policy analysis. So I really thank you for that. And I thank all the organizations that report on the information. I was the director of one MFI, and I know how long it takes to respond. But I want to say that we're going to use this information. I think I have a very important message. The de-employment and the Commission is part of the sector. We are here to support the sector. The best we know the sector, the best we can help you. Okay, we are not a donor just auditing and everything. We are here because we believe in the work that you are doing, and we want to help you to doing better. So this information, this information is very important. So I want the message to everyone who reported, keep reporting, be the more transparent possible. To the networks, reach as much as organization as possible, because that is very important for us. We can design better our products. We can try to help you better. So we need your information. We need your voice in order to help you better. So that's for us, and especially for the employment and all my colleagues, a very important piece of information for policy analysis. We really thank you a lot for that. And thanks, Nicola and Justina, and we keep working even better with them to get the most of it. Thank you.
Jaime, thank you for your thanks. But tell us more now about the specific areas of the report that you want to perhaps elaborate on, extend your views on certain items of the report that has struck you as more important or surprising or whatever, please.
Well, for me, it's very important to see how you do it separate by type of entity. For example, the role that NGOs play, the role that MFIs, the banks, also the subdivisions by Eastern Europe, Northern Europe, everything. That allow us to know who are we helping, who are not we helping, to target better per area the type of organizations. Also, we know that the different type of organizations have a different capillarity on working with vulnerable or working with other sectors. So that helps us to really map the needs and what are we doing and what we have to do. So that's for us is very important. Also, when you report to us on the needs on the green, on the business development services. I'm a big fan. I remember in 2015 in Amsterdam, we have a conference on who paid the ferryman. BDS and sometimes we see them as a spend, and it's not a spend, it's an investment. It's a crucial part of the microcredit. If we don't do a good support to the beneficiary, the loan probably will not be repaid properly. And the most important thing, the person will fail. Because we have to remember, we are here for the people. Okay, the financial performance is only good if there is associated with the social performance. So BDS are a key and very important part of the microfinance sector. And from the employment, we have it on mind, and we are trying to see how we can keep working and supporting this key part of the microfinance. And as Nicola said, and you said, Dominic, there is a lot of information. I've been looking at the 2022 for months, and now I keep digging in 2023. So I'm going to really go in very detail, dividing by type of organization, divided by type of loan, divided by everything, trying to look at interest rate, BDS, vulnerable groups, to see really map in very much detail what are we doing in every country and by type of organizations, and see what are the gaps. And from there, I will try to develop further our cooperation with you.
Well, that's good news. Happy to hear that, Jaime. We are looking forward to the Commission work on all these aspects, of course, because these are the ones that are most important for the sector ever since the Commission started to be deeply involved. That is, I think, back to 2007, if I'm not wrong. We are very thankful for your efforts and hope that this survey will help you fine-tune even further, like BDS support and the like. But let me ask you just quickly a second question on
Yes.
Having seen roughly what the report looks like. Is there any area that you think could be improved? Any questions that has not been asked and should be asked, or should be asked differently? Type of information that you would have been looking for and you did not find?
Well, I was talking with Nicola that, but I know I understand the anonymity of people don't want to disclose the name. But for us, it's I mean, if they can be disclosed, that will be better, because we know who is doing and what they need. But now I understand. But for example, the interest rate for me was very important to know. what was the interest rate, the average interest rate per type of organization. So then I can see better who is doing what, how. So this capillarity. So try to find the role of NGOs who, from our side, are underserved. Okay, and I know through the report that they play a very important role. Okay, so for us, it's good to know and to see what are the added value of the NGOs. So, for example, this is very important outcome for us from the report. What are the NGOs? What are they doing? Who are they serving? For example, they are more focused on business loans than personal loans. They are more focused on this type of beneficiary than in the others. So that's very important. The same with MFIs. The same with the banks. That help us to have a clear map, per region, per country. That's for us, it's everything. Let me be honest, because thanks to the good reporting of EIF, I know that the ones we are helping, what they are doing, and they're doing a good job and everything. But thanks to the report from EMN, MFC, I see that there is others doing a very good job that we are not reaching them. Okay, so that's for us is key.
Very good, understood. As you said yourself, there are some areas of confidentiality that we cannot enter into without trouble. So, but perhaps averaging by types of borrowers and the like, we may review this and see what we can do even better for next round. Thank you very much, Jaime.
Dominic, but tell them, and Nicola and Justina, tell them that we want to know who they are, not because we are not going to audit, because we really want to help them. Honestly, this is the message. We are here, all my colleagues in DG Employment, we want to help all of you. So if we want to know more, it's not because we want to audit you, it's because we want to help you.
No doubt about your intentions, Jaime. That's not the point. Now, let us turn to Cristina. Oh yeah, you were here. Same question to you. First of all, what is important in this report for you? And please extend on the areas of specific interest to your organization, or as you see them as important for MFIs. Floor is yours, Cristina.
Thank you very much, Dominic. Good morning, everybody, and thanks a lot for the invitation to join this webinar on presenting the results of the survey. I would like to extend my and EF thanks to the networks, to all the MFIs, all the microfinance providers that have responded to this survey. For us, basically, and I think for many others, is the main source of information on the European microfinance market. I don't want to say the only one, but basically is the main source of information on what's happening in the market, what's the size, the extent of the market, what can be benchmarked with what. In EIF, in our analysis processes, in our assessments of a transaction to be done or not, we are trying to do peer benchmarking, peer comparison, and the EMN MFC survey is the document to look at for these purposes.
Any specific area, Cristina, you want to extend upon or comment on?
The survey is quite comprehensive, let's be honest. This doesn't mean that there are not parts that can be improved or I don't know, I don't want to say left aside because it's not the right word, but probably considering that the microfinance market in Europe is still developing and it's a relatively young market, considering the interventions from the EU financial instruments for the last 15 years plus minus, since the launch of EPA, Jasmine, EPMF, and going through EASY and InvestEU, maybe we should look into how these instruments and their deployment has steered the development of the microfinance market in Europe. What helped, what not helped. If there is something that that had not such a positive impact, maybe, I don't know. Where we started from and where we ended up. And I think the development is very well shown by the survey. You are mentioning this is the 7th edition, or maybe
11th.
more.
11th.
So we have some data, I think, in the papers, in the archives of EMN and MFC, and I think we traveled a long and nice journey.
All right, and same question as for the others, for looking forward to the next edition. Any idea of where to improve or where to put the focus, since we have agreed to focus on different areas each time around, or areas that you are less satisfied with this report, this version?
This version of report, compared to a couple of editions earlier, has no information regarding the microloan pricing. And considering the few crises that came upon us during the very recent years, starting with the COVID-19 pandemic and going through the Ukrainian war, and then energy crisis, inflation, and so on, how all these have impacted the MFIs, how all these have impacted the micro borrowers. The cost structure of the MFI, where it went, what are the main items of such a structure that have been impacted very much, and how this translated into the cost coverage part, let's put it this way, because some of the costs have been increased and they have to be covered by something. And of course, the easiest way to cover these costs is to increase the microloan pricing. How much this pricing have been increased? What are the main effects on the products that were launched in the market? And then I would comment a bit on some challenges that were presented by Nicola earlier when speaking about the green part, green topic, and the digitalization topic. Because, okay, why not so many green products by the MFIs? What can be done to increase this the share of the green products? But on the other hand, we have to be aware of the fact that creating a green product has to be, on one side, sustainable for the institution, and on the other side, affordable for the final client, for the final beneficiary. Or we know that that's not such an easy task usually. And then if we look into the digitalization part, yes, this improved the efficiency and smoothened the communication between the MFI and the micro borrower and the micro entrepreneur. But we all know that microfinance is about human touch, is about face-to-face discussions and very well knowing your client. Isn't that a danger for the microfinance? How should we obtain a balance between the optimization, the efficiency gains that digitalization brings, and the spirit of microfinance?
Good question. That's perhaps going beyond the capacity of the survey itself, but certainly something to look at carefully. I was asking myself the same question, and we leave this with our researchers to think about for future work. Thank you very much. Any other remark, Christina, from your part?
Not for the moment, but okay. I keep the right to re-intervene if needed.
Well, no problem. Thank you very much. We will then turn to Bruno Robino. You're with us. Bruno, same question as for the others. Tell us a little bit from your perspective, what is the importance of the report and where you would like to elaborate on certain aspects or issues, either for now or for the future?
Okay, thank you, Dominique, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the invitation and congratulations on this publication, which just went live, and all these efforts on this survey. So what is important from our point of view? Well, and I'll try to focus on the funding needs. So having more and more accurate data, well, it's not only crucial for the microfinance provider because they will be able to better operate, to better offer, and to provide microloans and also non-financial services. But what is important for us is to push, I would say, a bit more the mentality. EIB is a very prudent animal, and microfinance was, I would say, overlooked. And now slowly, and thanks also to documents like this, we see or we are able to create more attention. So we need more documents like this to justify that there is a market. It's well, in the eyes of EIB, it's a super risky market, but we need to make sure that this is the risk is acceptable and it contributes to a certain number of objectives. So documents like this are extremely important to make people evolve and evolve the mentality. So this is what I would say from our side. Let me pick up on a couple of points regarding the section on funding needs. What I notice is that there is still a good 20% of MFI that are not operationally self-sustainable. I hope that this is a trend which is decreasing, and this is a question to Justina and Nicola. Hopefully, this because it's a no-go for the IB or any financial institute to finance non-sustainable organization. So this is an important issue. On the origin of funding, I see two trends. The majority, as it was mentioned, the majority of the loans are coming from commercial banks, which is the most used source of funding. But I see also that EU resources are fundamental, which is the second largest source of funding. And this, of course, the idea is probably in an environment where EU fundings in the future most likely have a tendency to be reduced. The combination of public resources with private resources is the key, is the leverage, is the scalability, and it's the possibility to do more with less public resources. But this is at the essence of the financial instruments. So I can see the trend in the results of this survey. Excuse me. I also see that 1 out of 2 respondents use guarantees, mainly from the IF or from national guarantors. That's fine. That's very good. I also, although this is needed, desirable, this doesn't provide or doesn't increase or doesn't solve the problem of access to more liquidity, which is an issue for a number of them. And this is further confirmed by the fact that the survey indicates that, and there is no surprise, the majority of MFIs need more funding. So there is a need to inject more money, and we have to find ways to make this possible in the future. Would that be by sharing schemes, risk-sharing schemes? But this is an element which is which I picked up, and I can see is still an issue in the market. I welcome documents like this because it makes evolve, it makes people think not only in the market, but also at the IB level. And I stop here for the moment.
Thank you.
No, maybe. Maybe what I would like to see for the future, it's for sure what is the situation. So, yeah, it's not only a series of pictures, but maybe a more forward-looking. So, what are the real needs? And probably, I know that it's super difficult to predict, but an evolution, a foresight over the next 5 years in terms of funding is extremely useful, not only for EIB Group, not only for the other IFRs, but I think also from the European Commission point of view. So this is what I would recommend in future edition of the survey.
Thank you very much, Bruno.
And I stop here.
I think that on the issue of sustainability, I don't want to open a big debate here and now, but I have some questions about what is meant. Because if sustainability is purely on a financial ground, then you don't need microfinance altogether. The sustainability must be both on social and financial ground. And some of the returns are social and not financial, and this needs to be taken into account in the global review. But that's a big issue that I don't want to discuss here, but let me come back to you, Bruno. And for the future, you already alluded to one area of improvement or extension of the survey, but don't use langue de bois. Be frank. What do you think of the quality of the survey, and where do you think it could maybe be improved or be changed?
But this is maybe more a question to Nicola and Justina. So my worry or my question is the quality. I know that you do double check, 3 checks, but is the quality of the data that you receive sufficient? Are you is there any possibility to increase the quality of the data that you receive? So maybe with more or different questions or more accurate question. I know that it might take more time from the point of view of the surveys, but the question is probably to the organizer of the survey. Is there any possibility to have or to ensure quality in the data received? So and again, this could be the basis for or the more quality, the more accurate could be the basis, and I guess the European Commission already used that, Jaime mentioned this, is the basis for the future programming. We are at the beginning of the discussion of the next MFF, so quality and accurate data could be very useful in defining and designing future policies and budgets, of course.
Very good. Let's pick up that question for the last Q&A session at the end. I'm sure Justina and Nicola will pick it up at that point. Let's perhaps first move to our last speaker, Christina, the other Christina from the Council of Europe back in Paris. Same question to you, Christina. What's important in this report from your perspective, and where do you want to elaborate on certain issues or certain focus point? Floor is yours.
Thank you. So I can only join in all the thanks and all the reasons for the importance of this report, the other speakers. Everything applies to us, of course, as well. We, as many of you know, provide funding and technical assistance to the microfinance sector, and increasingly so. And clearly having this report is very important. We want at the CB, we really want to use the bottom-up approach and to provide services that fit the needs of institutions across our countries of activities. So we work with EMN, we work with MFC, we try to do focus groups discussions with many people who I see are attending this webinar. But this report clearly helps us to check the assumptions, helps us to identify broader market developments than we can get just from some few organizations that we work with. So it's clearly a very important resource for us. And I join Bruno in saying that a more forward-looking approach would be very beneficial, because it takes time to develop a product on our side as well that we can offer to the market, or to develop partnerships with many people who are here around the table. So the importance of this report is crucial. This is clear. And the topic I wanted to touch on is, of course, the vulnerable or the underserved populations that have been invoked in this year's report. For us as a social development bank, of course, this is a critical topic, and we see microfinance as the sector that can really address the needs of these populations. And I'm very grateful to Nicola and to Justina that we at the CB have been consulted on this topic. We have discussed the questions. First of all, we have discussed with them how we should define these vulnerable populations, who are the underserved, because all of the microfinance clients are underserved in some ways. So which is what would be the best way to look at these underserved? We took the approach that is suggested by the OECD, where we compare the groups of missing entrepreneurs to the core age men in each country. So this is the conceptual approach, which helps us to identify some of these groups like women, rural populations, migrants, etc. And the report shows that indeed microfinance serves these groups more maybe than the traditional sector, financial sector, but we still see that there is room for improvement. The youth is only 16% of the active borrowers. The seniors as well is quite low. Women is less than a half. So probably there is a room for improvement. And it's interesting to see what the MFI say, why it's difficult for them to serve these populations. And we know the reasons, but it's still important to have them in writing and to see the percentages and by group. So this is very interesting. What we know and what is not reflected in the report is, of course, that vulnerabilities are often multi-layered and multidimensional. So clearly, a young woman of migrant origin in a rural area is not the most attractive client, but we still should see how we could address the needs of such potential entrepreneur. What we know is that microfinance institutions or microfinance providers are the right actors to provide the services to this group. And we have been thinking a lot about this with Justina over the last year. We have developed an approach based on an entrepreneurship pyramid, how to serve the vulnerable populations. I will not go into details here. We will discuss this a bit more in the upcoming MFC event. But we know that on different levels, microfinance institutions can provide support in terms of skills through training, in terms of a social network through mentorship, and of course, financial services at the top of this pyramid. But we also see in the report that in order to provide outreach to these vulnerable populations, 84%, I believe, of microfinance providers report that they need additional support. And that support in terms of all different sorts of instruments, grants, guarantees, as technical assistance, funding, and all of that. So it's important for us to see how we can do that. And the only way, of course, we can do that is through building partnerships with everyone who is sitting here around the table, and also some other private actors that I see are present in the public. So, I mean, all these data points are important to support the market and to help us design the better products. And we know that supporting vulnerable groups has significant externalities that cannot be that have to be accounted for through public support. And this is why we will be working more with the European Commission and with other institutions to do a bit more.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Christina. That was an in-depth analysis of some aspects, indeed. The second question, like for anyone else, any area of the report that you would suggest to modify, extend, decrease, change for the future editions?
So in addition to what has been said, well, of course, I would like to see the continuation of the social, of the vulnerable groups aspects, so that we can track it over time and see whether there are some developments in the market. So this, ideally, we would like to see going forward, even if I know that the target topics will be different each time. But this is, I think, is one of the key topics to be followed. What I would also like to see is more information about how different institutions measure social outcomes or social impact, and whether there are some needs, some identified needs or support mechanisms that they could use to help them do more. Because clearly, if we can measure the impact better, we will be able to mobilize more support for the sector. So it would be interesting to see what's happening in that sense. And lastly, I think it would be interesting also to see what kind of certifications the institutions are using in terms of green, in terms of ethical provision and all of that. So just to see to what extent our microfinance providers are certified under different types of standards, and also if they need more support and what kind of support they would need to be able to get certified to a larger extent, because this is also a crucial aspect for mobilizing more support.
Well, excellent. This is very clear, specific suggestions for the future. We are all taking notes. I think that unless you want to make any other comment or any other remark, Christina, we can...
I think I'm good for now, but I'm ready to take questions if needed.
Okay, so we can turn to the question and answer session. We still have more than 40 participants around, so I suspect there must be areas where they want to put questions to the panelists or to the two researchers that presented the survey. I don't know. You need to help me in logistic, Francesca.
Yes, Dominic. So yes, everyone that wants to take the floor is free to do so. They can unmute themselves. But in the meantime, we already have some questions in the chat. So I will read the first, which is directed to Justina. So there is no need to redirect. And the question for Justina is regarding funding sources. There is 27% in other sources, which is higher than the EU sources used, which is 25%. Do we know what is behind these 27% other sources?
Yes, some of them are client deposits. In case of credit unions or microfinance banks, they reported other sources of borrowings as deposits of their clients and members. And the rest is just other sources than the ones listed, but we don't know what they are. But the majority of this 27% is credit unions and banks, meaning their client deposits.
Thank you, Justine. Then there is an open question, so I will read it and then leave it to you to redirect, Dominic. And it is, do we know why MFIs develop more in certain areas?
Like, oh, that's the question.
That's the question,
okay.
Yes.
I'm not sure what it means, but at this point, Nicola, do you want to pick up that question?
Maybe I'm not sure I have the full response to it, but maybe I can contribute with one element that is regulation. For sure, dedicated regulation of microfinance in certain countries allow the development of sectors where we can see larger number of MFIs operating in those areas. I'm thinking on some countries in the Balkans where you have very dynamic markets. You have other countries where you have regulations such Italy, where you have a big number of MFIs, and then you have countries where you have almost no organization disbursing microcredit, and this is due to stringent regulation that doesn't allow non-bank providers to disburse loans, and that obviously doesn't that obviously prevent the sector to develop. Then I'm sure there are a number of other reasons, but that for me is one of the biggest causes of differences between markets.
This is very interesting, Nicola, and it brings me to a point or a question I would put to for the next survey, and it is precisely about regulatory environment. I think thanks to your good research papers, country by country, on the regulatory environment, we know a lot. But it might be interesting to hear from the practitioner's point of view, during the survey exercise, what they believe are the main positive and negative aspects of their own regulatory environment, to ensure first that we've got the right picture, and second, to see the situation from their point of view, and then support advocacy on adapting the regulatory environment to the best practices in the future. This might be a suggestion for the future. But let's go for the next question.
Yes, there is another open question, which is, do we know how many borrowers became bankable?
Just a second. If somebody wants to put a question verbally, you please raise your hand in the system so that we can see it, right? Because
Exactly.
otherwise we keep going with written question. Go ahead.
Yes, so there is another open question, which is, do we know how many borrowers became bankable after reimbursing their loans?
I presume neither Justina or Nicola, the answer is probably no, but any comment?
I can try to answer this question. We don't know that, and it's a difficult questions because many entrepreneurs use both banking sector loans and MFI loans. So it's difficult to say who suddenly, I mean, who in the process of using MFI loans became bankable. There are also many other factors. For instance, the enterprise age can be an excluding factor from the banking sector. So the micro enterprise, as it matures, it becomes eligible for a bank loan. So there are many factors, and it's difficult to measure. So that's why we don't collect such information in the survey.
Still might be worth some more thinking, because it is could be seen as an element of impact.
Yes.
To be able to, through the microfinance operation, to transform a non-bankable into a bankable, even if it is awfully difficult to find the exact answer to this question, might be an element to consider and to explore.
Yeah, so we can include such an indicator in the pool of new indicators for impact. As Christina mentioned, it would be good to have outreach and impact indicators in the next round. So this can be one of the questions.
Francesca, any other question?
Yes, let me. It's a. Yeah, I'm not sure it's relating to the survey, but there is a question which is, can you advise of any grants or funding for green lending that my Polish non-banking financial institution can get in order to provide green loans? And the same question related to Italy then.
I guess this is for Nicola. No. Any volunteer?
I can say about Poland. At EBRD has green economy financing facility, and it covers Poland. So that can be one of the sources.
EBRD.
EBRD.
Do you know why it covers only Poland?
I mean, Poland is included among the countries that they cover. There are,
but not only Poland.
Exactly, not only Poland, but as opposed to Green for Growth Fund, which is open only for the countries of the Balkans and Eastern neighborhood.
Okay.
So there are some funds, but in case of Poland, I can think of only one. That is EBRD GEF.
I'm sorry, maybe I can add, I invite the colleagues to contact the CEB as well for any potential exploration. We are not specialized in green loans, but we do provide support to some Bosnian microfinance institutions with technical assistance going through the just transition aspect of social and green loan product development. So there may be some areas of potential cooperation.
Excellent. Any other comments from panelists on this issue? No? Then Francesca, next question that you have?
Yes, the next question is the meta database openly available for research purposes?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. There is echo in the line.
Yes, I think Nicole, yes. Nicole and I are in the same room. Okay, is the meta database openly available for research purposes?
I can take that, Dominique.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and the response is yes, in the sense that every time we gather data, we try to make sure that this data is used, and the usage is not just the production of the report, but we also try to use it for academic purposes. So what we do is anonymization of the data set, and so that there's no possibility for any researcher to find the identity of the organizations. And we share this with any researcher that is interested in doing more studies, some econometrical studies or other type of studies with the data that we gather. We also, as Dominic mentioned, this is the 11th edition of the survey. So what we did is also to compile a sort of longitudinal data set where a researcher can see trends across the years. And this is very valuable for researchers in order to do more in-depth analysis. So yes, the response is yes.
Excellent.
It could be, sorry, it could be also valuable for us to see some of these trends. Maybe if at some point you could provide some figures or some presentations how this data has evolved over time. It could be interesting as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Point taken, I guess. Right. Back to Francesca. Unless there are other comments, of course, you don't hesitate to raise your hand if you want to contribute to the discussion. Francesca?
Yes, there is quite a long comment from Mohammed, which is more of a general question on whether are MFIs in the EU sustainable. We can invite Mohammed to turn the microphone on if you like. As I see you have quite a few comments.
Is Mohammed ready to take the floor? If not,
I also don't see him in the chat anymore, so maybe
okay.
he might have left.
Could you read the question again?
Yes, it's a very long comment. So it's how MFIs could be sustainable financially and socially without depending on the state and the EU subsidies.
That's a very clear question. Perhaps we put it to Bruno, who talked about sustainability.
Yeah, I'm sorry. As I was, hello to everyone, as I'm so passionate about the microfinance. So I would like to know about the sustainability of the MFIs in Europe from the social and financial aspect. This is the first question. And the second question, I would like to know if the MFIs in the European Union are sustainable from the two aspects without depending on the state and the European Union subsidies or subventions.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is a complex question, but perhaps each of the panelists want to give it a short answer. But starting with Bruno, who first raised the issue of sustainability. Okay. Bruno.
So as it was mentioned, sustainability has two aspects. So the financial sustainability and the social sustainability. When it comes to financial, of course, it is expected that an organization who is providing to microfinance at some point in time, not maybe at the beginning, but according to I would say a normal development, at some point in time will reach a certain degree of self-sustainability from a financial point of view. From a social, of course, then we enter into the discussion which indicators are reached and how you would consider self-sustainable from a social point of view. So this is very debatable. Financial self-sustainability is important in order, and we saw that a number of microfinance providers are using commercial banks as a first source of funding. So it's a bit unrealistic if you are not able to demonstrate that you are not self-sustainable from a financial point of view to attract the attention of commercial banks. This is important. So you might reach a lot of social self-sustainable elements, but if you are not, I would say, performing, or you are not fit from a financial point of view, I'm afraid surviving in the market could be put at risk. So this is my initial, and I guess is also biased from the fact that I represent a bank which is fairly risk averse in this respect. But okay. It's a fact. It's unfortunately it's a fact of the market.
Thank you, Bruno. I guess perhaps one of the Christinas want to intervene here. Christina,
yes. Yeah, thanks a lot, Dominique, and thanks a lot, Mohammed, for the question. I think we should look also from the diversity of business models of microfinance institutions in Europe. Because let's face it, I'm coming from Eastern Europe, and subsidies and donations in Eastern Europe are not that seen compared to MFIs in Western Europe. So we have to look at the business model of the institution. Another point to take into account, and I've seen there is a an additional question in the chat. Microfinance institutions in Europe are not allowed to take deposits by law. So another aspect of sustainability comes from the regulation. And let's look into the countries that have a bit of more intense regulation. And I speak here about Romania, about Italy, about Greece recently, even though in Greece the regulation, the microfinance law is pretty new. So we need a bit of time to understand its impacts on the sustainability of the new microfinance institutions created there. But when you have in Western Balkans, when you have the central bank looking into your data, into your financials, as an institution, you have to be sure that you are sustainable. Otherwise, you get an audit team from the central bank staying in the institution for a long time, and basically you cannot do your job anymore with a supervisory there checking everything and anything.
Okay. Christina, the other Christina, do you have anything to say here, or?
Yes. So for us, it's not maybe so clear-cut that if an institution is not purely financially sustainable, we would not support it, because we have and we do. But the point is that the more vulnerable you go in terms of serving vulnerable groups, the bigger the trade-off between the financial and social sustainability, and this is clear. So we have to know what we expect from microfinance as a sector and microfinance institutions individually. And financial sustainability may also be presented as inclusive of the subsidies or any public support. we know that the institutions, and especially in the Western Europe, that really go and target the most vulnerable segments and provide most support, because this is the only way to serve these populations, can only cover their costs to a very marginal extent. So basically, it depends on what we want to achieve and what support is available. But clearly, if we want to go and target, for example, the refugees, we will have to have public support. This is almost unavoidable. But financial sustainability can be also achieved by including the public support available.
Thank you very much. I think this is opening a fascinating debate, and I would have loved to put my own little bit in it, but Jaime, you wanted to intervene shortly because we're coming to the end of the meeting.
Yes, yeah, was as Christina said, it's really important as they don't have the access to deposit, which is the main source of income. The microfinance institutions, the only source of income is the interest rate. Okay, so the interest rate, the differential between the what you pay for the money and when you lend the money. So if you work with vulnerable people, you cannot put very high interest rate, because otherwise people will not repay the loan, and then you will. So that's the delicate balance between the social and the financial. Okay, and we know that and the European Commission. And that's why we have these programs trying to support through guarantee, through blending, through everything, so they can do it. There is no NGO. I worked 12 years in the International Red Cross. They are not sustainable. Okay, if we don't provide them with funds, they will not do the programs. So we cannot ask the small NGOs to be sustainable. But they have a very social role, very important social role, and that's why the European Commissions and the national governments, they support them. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jaime. I think this is a fascinating debate, but we cannot continue now. We're coming to the end of this webinar. I think that coming back to the survey, we maybe take this last debate as an input to fine-tune some questions for the future. If you can put some questions in order to try and evaluate how some MFIs calculate or measure their social impact or measure the social return of their investment, it would be very helpful to feed the debate. But anyway, I think we've heard lots of suggestions about forward needs, pricing, definition of vulnerable, certification and labels, impact measurement, regulatory environment, sustainability. You have certainly picked all that in your notes for future versions. So unfortunately now it's 1 o'clock and we decided to stop at 1 o'clock. So I need now to summarize all the discussion, which will take only an hour. I won't, don't worry. Just to congratulate the staff of EMN and MFC for the very good work done. If you have further suggestions and proposals, don't hesitate to put them down in mails to Justina and Nicola. I'm sure they will be happy to see more proposals. Thanks to the organizers, thanks to the contributing MFIs, and last not least, thanks to the sponsors, i.e. the European Commission and the EIF, who have sponsored the exercise. And with this, thank you very much all, and see you soon, I hope, in Bucharest for the EMN annual conference.
Thank you so much. Thanks for organizing this conference. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. See you soon. Thank you.
This was